Getting ready for winter weather observing and some listener emails on episode 510 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. I'm Chris, and joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up the night sky, and this podcast is for anyone who enjoys going out under the stars. And one of those people we think is Mark Radici, but he failed to show this morning, Shane.
I still have faith.
We may
I
get cut off.
suspect there's a translation in the time difference here, so hopefully we can connect shortly with him.
And we'll give him a suitably hard time. So we put together a podcast here on some listener emails, but Shane, it is getting colder.
Yep, yep.
To
Winter's
say the
starting
least.
to starting to like kind of make itself known,
Mm,
but it's weird. Like, so right now, I think when we're recording, it says minus 12 degrees Celsius outside. Certainly not warm, not too cold. But then tomorrow it's +9, and then we're into
mm.
plus temperatures for quite a while again. So I'm not sure what to expect.
Yeah, and I'm here watching giant plumes of fog or steam coming off the lake. I guess it's more steam than fog, but it's making fog right before my eyes. It's pretty wild. It looks like giant things coming off of a factory or something, but they're really just coming off. The lake is just rapidly freezing right before my eyes. It's very distracting, Shane.
Hmm. Well, gives you something to be entertained by, I guess.
Yes, yes. And yeah, I was out observing here last night, actually. I don't know. Have you been out recently?
No, no, I have not. Yeah, just kind of busy for the most part. But how was it last night? Conditions here, I'm about 30-ish minutes away from you, and it wasn't awesome last night here in the city, that's for sure.
No, no, it was downright not good.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the conditions sucked.
Hmm.
But there was a method to my madness. So I knew the conditions weren't going to be ideal, but I have I guess it's not just me, but we have some stuff to test out from listeners and have still those eyepieces from Justin and the ADC from Alistair. And I think there's some other stuff here. And I've had them for way too long. And, but with these kind of things, I wanted to test on the moon and planets. And of course, when we got them, it was not moon and planet season. So I was really sort of waiting for a night to kind of give this stuff a whirl. And I also want to test out putting a Barlow in front of my prism diagonal and messing around with a bunch of stuff like that. But it just didn't come together last night. I knew the moon was coming up, but that would be useful for this test. But once the temperature really started plunging, it was supposed to originally be like -7, I think. Wasn't that the forecast?
For last night?
So, like originally, it was supposed to be like in the evening. It was supposed
Oh,
to be
okay.
like
Yeah,
-6 or -7,
yeah.
and then they changed it. And by the time the sun set, it was like -10 or -11 here anyway. And it did clear very briefly as it was supposed to, and I got set up and running, so that was great. But then the lake started giving off these huge plumes of moisture, and like you were saying, Shane, it was fairly warm the past little while, and then we had this really sudden cold snap, and basically this lake is almost like flash freezing because it's a very shallow lake. I think the deepest spot is like 30 feet, someone said. So so it's going through this transition phase, which is good because essentially what happens with this lake is when it's frozen, the air is very stable, and when it's warm, the air is pretty stable around it. But when it freezes up and when it thaws out, it is a little bit unstable. But those periods are much shorter than I could have ever imagined, being that, essentially if we had, I'm going to say, another couple days like this, that lake would freeze probably enough. Almost, I wouldn't do it, but you could probably almost walk across it, if we had 2 more days like this.
Well, you're a braver man than me.
I wouldn't do it. I don't go out on ice because where I'm from, you don't go on ice. So I do a
Yeah,
little bit here from time to time, but holy smokes,
I
I don't like
Yeah,
it.
I definitely would be waiting a lot more than a few days unless we got like minus 40 here. But
Yeah.
it uh it can get a little dicey, and I'm overly cautious when it comes to going on
Oh,
ice, but
yeah. But the animals will, like you'll see the animals going across, but it will freeze and it will get pretty thick pretty fast. Usually I know folks who measure it. I think it can get up to, I think once it was up to like 8 feet thick, someone said. I don't know if that's true or not, but
8 feet, yeah, that sounds a little big. That might be a bit of an exaggeration.
but it will freeze pretty thick because I was working with somebody who was into ice fishing and it did get so thick that they had to buy like an extra long auger and that thing was at least 5 feet. And I don't know if that was overkill or what, but yeah, it was
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
the thickest I've ever seen, because I quite enjoy ice fishing, and I had to buy an extension for my auger, but it would have been about 5.5 feet. And again, that's the thickest I've ever seen. I've heard a couple rare winters, and not here, but like in our neighboring province of Manitoba, where two extensions were required. So then you're getting probably about 6.5 feet.
Yeah. Aren't you supposed to like spit or something when you say that province's name or that's always
I
the feeling I get around here. I didn't know there was such I think it comes from football or something. There's a bit of rivalry between the two provinces,
there,
which
there,
the
there
rest of
certainly
Canada
is.
doesn't really know about actually. I was
But
like, wait, what?
yeah,
What's wrong with Manitobans?
but I'll go
Let
on
me
record and I'll say it. I like Manitoba and I like Winnipeg. It's a nice city. My wife and
I
I go to Winnipeg probably at least once a year.
Yeah, I get you. I've been there a few times in the summer, and wow, I from what I gather, it's colder in the winter, which is sort of hard to imagine, and I believe it gets more snow, and I believe that it's slightly hotter and more humid in the summer, which just to me sounds terrible. I've been there in the summer and was shocked at how humid it can be over there. All right. So getting ready for some cold weather observing. Well, I was out doing some observing last night. I got a good look at M13, and that was about it. I tried looking at a few other things, Shane, but like I didn't even bother trying to sketch or anything because I could see these like sort of like the cloud kind of just sort of fogging up the sky. So it was too bad.
Mhm.
Tried to take a look at NGC 188. I kind of barely got a view of it through the thin cloud, but took a look at NGC 752. So NGC 188 is that closest open cluster to Polaris. And I think it's like a fairly large-ish faint smattering of stars or something. And then NGC 752 is up off Triangulum or just below Triangulum. And it's one of those clusters that Carolyn Herschel discovered there a couple hundred years ago.
Neat.
Yeah, but it was cold. And, you know, one thing that I've gotten to wearing is quite a bit of down out here. We got down, we got down to about minus 13-ish. It was saying minus 17, minus 18 with the wind chill. It was supposed to go to minus 18 originally, but I think with the lake giving off so much energy and with the clouds that were forming, it trapped any little bit of heat that was remaining. So that's something that can happen when you do have cloud, hey?
Yeah, it can skew the forecast a little bit for sure.
And if it's clear though, you lose all that heat just basically to space. I
Hmm.
think it's that's what people say anyway, but I think it kind of just sort of disperses more or whatever. But sometimes it can get awfully cold when it's clear, and those can be some of the best conditions, especially for dark sky, new moon periods when you're not trying to look at planets or anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what do you wear when, or how do you prepare for some cold weather observing, Shane?
Well, layers for sure. And, I go by the philosophy of dressing for whatever the advertised temperature is, dress for 20 degrees colder than that.
Yeah,
And like I said, with the layers, it helps you be flexible. Excuse me, that if you're overdressed, you can take a layer or two off. And if you're too cold, you just keep adding.
yeah.
But essentially, that's it. and I'd much rather be too warm than too cold. And the layer effect, like part of that too is making sure that there's some windproof layers there as well, because the wind really changes the equation. And then maybe the last thing I'll say is, well, two things. One, I have that heated jacket that makes such a difference.
Yeah, Mike bought one of those, I think, after you were talking about it. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
he bought a vest, I think, and it goes underneath, or maybe it is a jacket.
yeah. They
Um,
have everything.
yeah.
So a vest would make a lot of sense too. But not only does it like just keep you warm with the heat, but when you layer up over top of it, you keep all of that heat inside, and it becomes like a very efficient system.
Nice.
So yeah, I love that. I wouldn't mind heated pants, but I'm not sure. I haven't really looked for them, so I don't know. I'm sure they're out there, but I just haven't looked. But for me, it's about my neck mostly. If my neck
Mm,
isn't covered, I get like I'll freeze no matter what else is on around me. So I usually put on like a fleece neck gaiter, and it just like I can pull it all the way up to my ears basically and tuck it into my
mm,
shirt. So then I get like really good kind of neck protection.
nice.
And yeah, if I do that, I'm not too bad. My weak points are my hands and my feet. I don't know if I have good circulation or if it's because I'm kind of long, long limbs or what it is. But
Yeah,
like even when I go snowshoeing with friends, they will have gloves off because their hands are too hot, and I've got the
yeah,
heaviest mitts I own on because my hands are freezing. So it's
yeah,
just a weird
yeah,
dynamic for me.
yeah.
How about you? What's your plan of attack?
Yeah, well, my weaknesses. I've had several surgeries now to my leg, and um, basically, I won't get into all the gory details, but it just doesn't get that much blood into my left leg, and so I have to be very careful with it because I don't really feel that it's getting cold, but it is, and that can cause me to get very cold. And so I've never been somebody that was bothered much by the cold, and even still, like -10 doesn't really bother me too much. But when it does get below -20, I have to be very careful with it. It seems. But in general, what I do is is I have really good long underwear. I find is kind of the key. And when I first started going observing, my friend Graham, uh, who sadly passed away about 8 years ago. And anyway, we went observing, and I was always good for about an hour or two, but then I would just start getting too cold. And he was very very much about getting as much observing in as possible. And he was a person who didn't drive, and so he had to rely on me or anybody else that would take him observing, and he knew how to dress for the cold. And I was thinking this was something I knew a lot more about than I did, I guess. But he introduced me to like getting like better proper pants just for going observing. Because typically I would just go out until I get too cold after an hour or two, whatever, and go home. And he was like, "Well, you'll be much more comfortable if you just go buy a pair of insulated pants that are kind of too big and you can just sort of put them on over whatever else you're wearing." And so I started doing that, and I was shocked how much more comfortable I was. So I just started with like basically fleece lined like very heavy windbreaker pants, I guess maybe is the best way
Hmm.
to describe them, and then just wear them over my jeans or track pants or whatever. And then now what I do, and that can get you pretty far. That's pretty much all you need in like Eastern Canada or whatever, where it doesn't get too cold. That'll be totally fine. But here it gets much colder, to say the least.
Hmm.
And and so what I do is I've got a couple pairs, and I'll probably buy another pair. Just I really like these. Is they look just like a down jacket, but they're down pants. And I'm not sure how you're supposed to wear them, but I buy them sort of a size too large, and then I can kind of put them on over pretty much anything. And I find that those really do the trick. If you layer underneath them, you need to layer because they tend to have a lot of holes from the stitching or whatever. But in general, they both cut most of the wind and but they trap like all the heat, especially in the observatory where there's very little wind in there. So they can make it pretty comfortable, even just with a pair of jeans underneath. I can go pretty far with those. And then when it starts getting really cold, if I wear like lined pants underneath them and a pair of track pants, and a pair of long johns and lined pants and these over top, certainly get into the minus 20s. And that's kind of the limit of the electronics is about that minus 20-ish zone. Once you get beyond that, it starts to feel like you could be at the edge of doing some damage. So I don't go much beyond minus 20 whatever when I'm running my mount for fear of just breaking it. It seems to work okay, but that's kind of the limit for me.
Yeah, yeah, like that's the other side of it is just the mechanical parts of the telescope and mount. Sometimes they don't do very well at cold temps. I remember that when I discovered that for the first time, I had my William Optic 80 millimeter Zenith Star refractor out and the Teleview 8 by 24 zoom, which isn't made anymore, but you can still find it on the used market occasionally. And I'd been out, I think you were actually with me. We were out just east of the city here, observing on a road, and I probably had the telescope out for maybe 30 minutes, and I had it out operating at the 24 millimeter focal length, and I wanted to zoom in on a planet or something, and I couldn't because the eyepiece had locked, like it froze
Mm,
basically at 24 millimeters, and the
mm,
zoom was essentially now a fixed focal length eyepiece. And so, zooms can kind of freeze up on you. The focusers, sometimes freeze up depending on if there's grease in there. And then, of course, the mounts can have all kinds of issues.
yeah, yeah. For a jacket, I don't I haven't gotten into wearing any of this heated stuff. I think I would be too warm because my upper body tends to get very, very warm. Um, Even like if I'm outside doing any kind of movement at all. And maybe I should preface all this with I grew up working in a freezer. That's how I paid for university and got started in life. And it was always minus 26 with a 30-kilometer wind blowing in there. And I think that just changes you when you grow up doing that, Shane.
Hmm. Yeah.
So so my upper body tends to stay pretty solidly warm, but I'll wear. I have a couple jackets. One is sort of like a what I think of as an East Coast winter jacket, which would be all you'd ever need out there, except on the 3 or 4 days every year or two when it gets below minus 15 or so. But in general, at minus 15 or warmer, that jacket is fine. But even last night, I decided to put on the heavier one, just because it is so well insulated. It's like that 800 down fill or whatever it is. And it's good to, they say it's good to like minus 35 or minus 40 out for prolonged periods. And it has a lot of pockets and everything, which I like. And so I have my cell phone, and then I have my cell phone for the observatory, and then I have the ability to even put the hand controller inside of it if it gets too cold. So it's really good like that. It has a big hood. Like that's what I like is a hood. I don't bother with any kind of scarf or anything like that. And I do find like if I sort of put too much up and around and like trap too much heat, I will just like sweat out. Like I'll just sweat so much I'll start freezing because of that. So usually I don't do anything of that nature. But yeah, last night minus 13, minus 17, minus 18 with the wind. That was totally fine. Like no problems at all. Like I said, I'm pretty good down to about minus 20 ish, and then wearing this kind of gear, and then that's kind of it. So basically, yeah, I had the long underwear on and my lined jeans, and then the down pants over top, and then the big puffy jacket, hat, and gloves, of course. But honestly, at these temperatures, minus 13, um, Sham, like your friends there, I got my gloves off. Like I only have my gloves on about half the time. Like one of the things is that when you do dress that warm, like your hands and face and that just don't get as cold because you're just
Mhm.
warmer, you know?
Yeah. You sort of create a bit of a mini ecosystem around yourself, and it's just a little bit warmer everywhere then.
Yeah, and I think as well, like when you do start warming up, like it does drive more blood to your hands and face. We all see this, like if you go out for like, a good walk in the summer or whenever, like your face can get kind of flushed or your hands might feel warm or whatever. And that is your body driving the blood to the extremities. So if you can kind of trick yourself, and I guess maybe that's what I'm doing, sort of not necessarily on purpose, but it is what I'm kind of doing with this is by dressing just slightly warmer than even the conditions call for, then my hands are getting so warm in the gloves that I got to take them off. And then it's much easier to observe without gloves on. So it might seem a little wild to think that I'm out and it's minus 13 and I'm really not wearing my gloves most of the time, but my hands aren't cold. Like, and I'm not crazy. You can kind of sort of trick your body into doing that is what it boils down to. And that's what happens with your friends when they're snowshoeing too. But yeah, I'm not as tall as you, so there's less distance for the blood to go to my fingertips.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
um, yeah, and don't drink, folks, when you're doing this because
Mm-hmm. Like
the
alcohol.
drinking, yes, yeah, despite perhaps lowering the viscosity of your blood, it's not going to actually make you warmer. You might feel a little warmer, but I wouldn't do that. I think that's just a recipe for disaster.
Hmm.
Um, we were talking about gear. I can't remember. I think I was telling you, maybe it was before we started recording. I can't remember. I don't think I said it in the recording itself, but my hand controller for the telescope mount is freezing up a little. It's pretty good down to about plus 30 degrees Celsius. No, it really starts even getting a bit of a blank screen after a few hours, anywhere near zero.
Hmm.
Um, and so I did get a warmer for it. I just haven't hooked up all my um, it's like the dew system, but really I don't need a dew system out here. It's a frost system. Once it gets below zero here, especially when the lake is doing this, it gets fairly frosty. So I have one of the Kendrick dew heater systems. And so I gotta hook that up and get it running.
Yeah. When I had my backyard observatory, I had a Celestron AVX mount in there, and that drove me crazy. Like you said, anywhere near 0 degrees. And when I say that, I mean like even like single plus digits, it would start to slow down. And the closer you got to zero, like, yeah, it would just lock up at some point and you're really not observing much anymore unless you have like, kind of like your setup with the cell phone and Sky Safari. Like I used to do that too, but even cell phones will, lock up too with getting too cold. So at some point, the cold wins and you can't there's not much you can do to beat it.
Yeah, like you said, I got one of these ScanFi wireless Wi-Fi adapters for the SynScan mount by astro-gadget.com, Astro Gadgets. And this is a great device. Um, it works so much better than I even thought it would. And basically, it just plops into the auxiliary port of the hand controller, and so then you just leave it attached to wherever you have it on the mount, the hand controller. That is, you just clip it into your hand controller holder, and then you can just use like Sky Safari to control the mount, and and that's really ideal because then it doesn't really seem to matter if the screen blanks out or whatever. So I can get by like last night. It's just if it's much colder than that, like really even minus 13, it blanks out pretty quick. So you have to be aware of that, and really anything much colder than zero, it's probably best to have the little heating unit on it. But yeah, I don't know why. It's mostly the screen. It's just I don't know why they should just sell like an aftermarket one you can get with a screen that doesn't freeze up because the circuit board is still working. It's just the screen gets all garbled after a while.
Yeah, it's too bad they didn't use LED rather than LCD. That would solve it, but maybe one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my workaround for that. But the mount totally works fine. I really like the AZEQ6. Mike has splurged and dropped $50 on a used one and is getting that working. I can't wait to have him bring that up here, hopefully maybe later this month, and and see that working, C11 working alongside my 7-inch refractor. But in general, is getting back to cold weather observing. Really the main reason, and we were talking a little bit about this before we recorded. See, all the gold is just in our preamble conversation, Shane.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we were talking about observatory ownership. You owned an observatory. I currently own one. It's in sort of the final stages of build, but really it's probably about as done as it's ever going to be. There'll always be like tweaks and minor upgrades to it. But we were saying that unless you have like a fairly big scope, something that really isn't easily set up, it's almost better not to have an observatory because I could set up on my deck here. That's what I was doing before the observatory. Well, I would set up on the hill in the summer, but in general, in the winter, I would set up on the deck here. And then I was just 2 or 3 steps from being inside a nice warm cabin. And it felt so luxurious. I sit here, I'm doing my recording at the kitchen table. Kitchen's not like we have like a full kitchen in this place, but sort of the table at the end of the cabin, and it has a nice big bay window, and I could sit here with my charts out. I could like literally come in, be planning my next observation, looking at the sky where I'm going to be observing cut through the giant bay window, and then just walk out, do my observation and sketch, and then go back in. Sometimes I go out, find the object, and then come in, warm up a little bit, verify that I had it, grab my pens and pencils, go out, do the sketch, come back in, next object. And I could do that for hours and hours and hours and never get cold. It was just like miraculous. As soon as you feel just a little bit cold or you push it for another minute or two, you just hop in and warm right back up. And on those nights, I just never even used gloves, even down like -10, -12. There was like a whole fall where I never even bothered putting gloves on that whole time. It was amazing.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's a lot of work to keep an observatory running. So you want to have something fairly sizable in there. But in general, what I was finding was that going out and setting up like in the fields and that out and around had a variety of issues. But the big one for cold weather observing was that it would just get so cold out in the open fields. And I mean, really, it almost didn't seem like you could ever fully properly dress for it. And then, like in setting up and tearing down, like as soon as you have your hands out and exposed to that after you've already cooled down without really having any proper place to warm up, you would get just way, way, way too cold, or at least I would.
Well, the wind is the killer, and even just a slight breeze really cools you down so much faster. And that's, on the flat prairie where we live, a breeze is almost always there. Like it's
Mm,
exceptionally rare where the air is not moving here.
yeah.
And that is one thing that I really, really miss about my backyard observatory was that I could get rid of that wind and observe in maximum comfort because once the wind is gone, like it's such a game changer. Like I could, kind of maintain my temperature way better and observe much longer. And I had the dome, so I could just position the dome to kind of deflect the wind from me and then just observe the
Mm,
opposite sky and it just worked really, really well.
yeah. Yeah. And here, in essence, my original plan was to have an observatory with fairly low walls. And then after observing out in the open here during that first winter, late fall, and into early spring, and even in summer, I realized that with that constant breeze, like there was so many times where you just would get a bit too cold, even here. And then I would run in and get warm and whatever. But I was like, I want to have full-sized walls in this observatory. And so went with walls that are about 6'4", I think the walls are, something like that. And that's enough that it keeps, well, like last night, even with whatever it was, anything up to about 16 to 20 km/h winds, basically there's no wind in the observatory. And so again, that helps you just retain so much more warmth. And the reason for that is that if, as long as your walls are taller than you, then you're not heating that giant open space. Your body is only having heat pulled from you to those interior walls. Sort of is I think the way that Alistair had explained it to me, and that just by essence keeps you sort of artificially feeling warmer, even though the temperature might be the same. You're not cooling as fast, is what it boils down to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So that's quite nice and lovely. So that's really, in many respects, the main reason why I wanted to go with something like this, because the summers here are very short, and so it can be tough to go and try to set up and take advantage of any observing opportunities from about mid-May until about mid-July. So there's about 2 months there where, when it does get dark, it's not really getting dark till 10:30 or 11 o'clock. And then there's quite a long period of time where it does get dark from about midnight-ish till about 2 a.m.-ish during much of that time, or about a month of it. And you can observe during that period of time, but unless you've really got something in your backyard or very, very handy, it's really tough. Like if you have to go out and drive somewhere at midnight or 11:30 or 12 and then set up and then observe until 2 a.m. and then tear down and drive home. Like basically you've just stayed up all night, versus here what I do is I'll sleep until about midnight-ish, quarter after I'll set my alarm for, and then get up and go out and observe. At least that's what I did some last spring, and I'm certainly hoping that's the way to do it going forward now that the observatory is fully set up and running.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, it is. It is tough though. Here I find, just because like now we get into this almost like perpetual darkness. Just about. I mean, it seems like we get 6 good hours of sunlight a day here for about 2 months. And then that can be tough. Like I was saying yesterday, there was a chance that it would clear, and it did. It just, due to the wonky conditions, it didn't hold. But the night is so long that the conditions can change significantly between when it gets dark and even maybe when you want to go to bed, because it's getting dark enough to observe now by like 6 o'clock. And you might not go to bed till midnight, or at least I don't. And so you've got like 6 hours. So literally in 3 or 4 hours, it might clear, even though maybe the night wasn't even shaping up that good. And I've had a lot of nights like that. I did get up and get running last night at 7 because it didn't look good, and then it got pretty good around 7, and then I kind of sort of did about an hour or so over 3 hours, and then just got too foggy. But it's like one of those strategic things to be properly set up to run. But Shane, we've got a few emails here to read. Should have got those sooner, but had one here from Bob. Do you want to give this read?
Sure. He said, love your podcast. It keeps me motivated. Just finished number 507 and wanted to make a suggestion to Shane. You said in 507 that you were starting to get into observing carbon stars more. You might note that all the carbon stars have variable star designations. That's what the VX, WZ, TX, etc. designate. They were assigned those letter designations based on the order they were discovered in. Anyway, when you were checking them out, why not just make a quick estimate of the star's brightness and report the estimate? You would send that to the American Association of Variable Star Observers, the AAVSO. whom the RASC supports in this regard. The RASC has a whole section on variable star observing on their webpage. If you enjoy the carbon stars, you might want to follow a few through their entire cycle of brightness and determine at what magnitude they are the most and least red, and send those observations to the AAVSO. And you can keep us all informed of your progress in the podcast. Just in case you want to try, I've attached some charts from the AAVSO for two of the carbon stars that were mentioned in episode 507. The charts marked reversed are for the telescope. The one marked bino is for direct viewing in binoculars. Hope you try it, and good luck. Clear skies from Bob.
Mark
Thanks,
did.
Bob. We'll see. I might start getting into magnitude estimations, but I'll check out the charts and kind of go from there.
Awesome. Did have a note there from Mark. He just didn't see the meeting invite in the top of the notes for some reason. All right. I told him to join at 11, so we'll see. Phil wrote he had first light on his PST. So he said, okay, as you know, this is something that I have aspired for many years. Back in 2019, when I first started doing astronomy, I saw an article in the Sky at Night magazine. And after years of listening to Shane talk about H Alpha, I'm becoming increasingly interested in our closest star and how this one star is not only all the reason for loaf. I think he meant life.
Mm-hmm.
Life. I'm loafing through life, though, on our planet, but also its behavioral effects on day and night. Hope to send you my first observations from my Coronado PST soon. Thanks so much, Phil.
Yeah, congrats, Phil. That's awesome.
Yeah, got a short email there from Mr. Richard.
Yeah, I'll take that one, I guess. Said, hey, Chris and Shane, hope you're doing well and getting lots of photons in the eyeballs. I just listened to your most recent podcast, and Chris mentioned you had observed the California Nebula, but hadn't had much success with it that evening. I recently took a picture of the nebula for a night with my small wide-field RedCat 51 telescope and cooled color camera. It was about 7 hours and 20 minutes of 5-minute exposures. And that's quite a nice shot. Lots of detail inside that, eh?
Yeah, I sent him back because I had done a sketch a week before, so I sent him back my sketch, and yeah, pretty cool. Richard's up in Edmonton, I think. Very nice. Thanks for that, Richard. Really appreciate it. Email from Kirk. He says, hello, Chris and Shane. I just got back from an amazing trip to Big Bend area in Texas. Darkest skies we have here in Texas, and is truly remarkable. Desert air, cool, dry nights. And the sky was incredible for 4 or 5 nights. The one night of clouds was a huge hailstorm with 60-mile-per-hour winds. And you did send some photos, Shane. It looks very similar to like the grasslands there. Some firsts for me is a new telescope, an 18-inch f4, where I observed M42, M81, M110, M36, 37, 38, 103, NGC 654, 659, and much more. Some highlights for seeing the dust lane in M31 and the veil popping out so easily. M57 was brilliant in an 8mm eyepiece, and I was amazed at the wide field view of NGC 884. I bet that looks amazing in your 7-inch. It sure does. I am fairly new to amateur astronomy. This is my first trip to a Bortle 1 site. Our location was at 3,000 feet off the beaten path. We had a long view of the flat desert, 100 feet or so before we could see a few homes and campers in the distance, but everyone kept their lights off. An occasional car would go by, but I get used to averting my vision when I saw those lights coming down. I heard about the second sunlight saga for you, Chris, at your observatory. Last I heard, the super bright light was off, but there was no response to your letters. We did get an update last week, so won't get into that. Surely the light owners turned it off due to your activity on the matter, and they did. You have a lot invested in that site. I totally understand your frustration. I am on board with your fight against the light demons. Good luck. I heard your discussion on traveling and observing. If you guys ever wanted to travel to Texas, Oklahoma, just give me a holler. You could visit the ranch that I go to. It is located about 200 miles west of the Dallas area, and Dallas-Fort Worth is a major hub, I can help assist with logistics. Yeah, that would be cool.
Oh, wow. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kirk. Really, really appreciate it. Well, Shane, I think we'll end it there and see if Mark joins us in a few minutes for our next show. So, dear listeners, please subscribe, share the show with other stargazers you know, and send us your show ideas and observations to actualastronomy@gmail.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.